Okay, for me, the much touted discussion about the bad presidency has been about this agricultural, um, I mean, I don't want to say agricultural revolution because to some of us, the word
You know,
revolution
mhm.
is very deep,
It's
but it has.
sacrosanct.
Yeah, so it has been talked about a lot. Agric. And so I think some of the things that we might be expecting, even though we never when I interact with like the APC people, I never get to understand where the landing point, the final goal is. Is it that we are going to have prices of food prices drop? Food prices are going to be like it's going to be more affordable for the Nigerian people because if that is possible, that would actually be a good, a very good goal. Um, but it seems that they are never, I think Sinucha has even had more interactions with them on the food stuff, but they are never like coming to a definite conclusion. What's the goal, right? What's the goal? I know that they want to produce for export and everything, but I think most importantly, what I'm looking at as a Nigerian is that I would love the prices of food, to really drop down. And if you check, majority of the guys that come online to support the bad presidency, many of them, from my own little research, have one or two investments in agriculture. Apparently, some of them have been, promised, loans and whatsoever and everything like that. But I think that that's one of the first things that will be looked because that has been like, in the whole the Agbado thing, the maize thing, whatever. I think we should be looking at that. Then yeah, maybe I should
Agriculture.
allow
Let's
you
let's
guys
stay on
go.
agriculture a
Yeah,
little bit
let's do
because
that.
I
Okay.
also watched an interview where Ajuri Ngelale spoke on that. So I think he was also speaking on it from the perspective of what the youth would do and how involved the youth will be in the whole administration. And Ajuri was kind of hinting to the fact that they are not focused on just youth that went to school. So they are trying to employ everybody, even people that didn't have the opportunity to go to school. And it was kind of primitive because he said something along the line of they would send these multiple young men to the field to clear grasses, clear bushes, and that's a source of employment for them. So yeah, it's kind of related to the agriculture. But I thought it was really primitive for 2023, but at the same time, it's like every job is a job. It's like you're struggling with putting placing or understanding where the value they are placing on youth is. They are trying to provide jobs and they're trying to say, okay, if even if you didn't go to school, yes, you can get a job in the agriculture. And but it's for me, it didn't leave a very good taste in my mouth. Let me just put it like that.
Did he just say jury? Ingalali.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, okay. He said he will send you to the farm, yeah.
That's what he said. Yeah, and the way he put it, he's a very good orator. So he put it in such a way that it looked like it was supposed to make sense, but it still just didn't sit well because he was like, they're going to send these multiple young men that haven't been to school to farm, and then they didn't even talk about mechanized farming, but at the same time, he hinted to the fact that it could be primary first with just people doing the primitive nature of farming, and then they might move to mechanized, and then they'll go to the industry aspect of it, of having factories all over the place. But he didn't really touch a lot on that aspect.
I guess Ajuri must have some certain studies that he's working with because it will seem like everything that exists at the current position, I mean, the current position of Nigeria particularly, suggests, let me put it that way, that we do not have the time for all of those things like he has outlined. And I think we should also know that there are jobs that can provide living wage for the people, and there are jobs that will still keep people impoverished, right? If you send our people to the field to go and get involved in primitive land clearing system or process, whereas we could just get the necessary machineries. For instance, we used to have a farm settlement in the old Western region. right? And one of the benefits of those farm settlements is the fact that it allows for a kind of cooperative system whereby farmers have access to the needed infrastructure to do clearing, to do plowing, amongst other things. And it actually was pivotal to the agricultural revolution in the First Republic. Yeah, but now the conversations around sending people to the farm seem more like something to complement what Bola Tinubu said at one of his symposium. Was it symposium where he said he will
The
employ
economic forum, is
economic?
that it?
Yeah, I think it's one of the forums there that they had in the run up to the election, where he said something like, "Okay, we are going to employ was it 50 million Nigerians to work in the army?" Where the Agbado
Yes,
Ewa
yes, yes.
Gari this thing came from. So I think they are thinking in line, but I would suspect that I would suggest that that is not a good way to go for farming in Nigeria. We do not have the time to start experimenting. And if you go, particularly if I'm not mistaken now, if you go to page 29 of their manifesto, right, what that place suggests, right, is completely contradicting what Ajuri must have said in that interview. So, do these people even have a grasp of what they've documented? You know, this was what their voters negotiated, yeah? This was why their voters voted. So, it is just practically a case that I do not think that's a thing that you will send people to the farm when to do subsistence farming when the mechanized farming could as well just save the day. And very importantly, pardon me, the argument around agriculture in Nigeria is a funny thing to me. Agriculture still contributes this most sizable chunk of what we have in Nigeria. And when you see such economy that is tilted in that way towards agriculture, uh, where you can find manufacturing doing a sizable number in that respect as well, or even more, you are literally saying that agricultural value chain is not being completely benefited from. We will say optimized economically, economics wise, pardon me, we will say optimized. So there's a lot of problem. Agriculture should can be the mainstay, but should not be the most prominent segment in the economy. When it is, it shows a kind of economy that may not rightly be able or might not have been getting the best value out of those produce.
Let me
And
pretend I'm from the APC and I'll say I'm going to report that by saying that what's it called, the biggest export, if you check the export chart of the US, they say agricultural produce is still the what they export the most. So what do you what do you have to say to that? Because you say if it's the bane of the economy, then it probably might not be the most uh reasonable.
no, I mean it is quite interesting that you even cited the US. Because when you look at the US, right, one of the things they are big on is actually the ability to meet their own local food requirement. And when you have done that reasonably and you have created value locally on the agricultural value chain in your economy, it might just make sense to export excesses to places where they are needed. You understand? But not in the case of Nigeria, where it will seem we have sesame seed, and then you see the allure. I mean, when I say allure now, the attraction of foreign exchange is making people sell things that are not even enough for us locally abroad. It's two different issues that we have there. So I think, for me, I just think logically, if you want to do anything, you must find a way to ensure that across the different sectors in the economy, you have the primary sector, secondary sectors, and the tertiary sector, right? Values are created significantly. And those are the basis upon which employment can be created. Those are the basis upon which new businesses can come around to optimize what we get on that value chain. I mean, it should also poke your curiosity, especially when you hear one of the things that has been happening in the past 1 week on Twitter, for instance, where they are talking about mangoes in Benue State. You'd be surprised that the scale that is needed to run a factory of mango juice making, for mango juice making, the power that is required are not available. So when such instances occur, what people just tend to do is they have wastages. And where they don't have wastages, they just do things that they only can consume. I mean, if there's a lot, don't let me hog the mic like they will say.
So I was just
this
going
is
through.
yeah,
I
before
was going
yeah.
through the. Yeah, I was going through the. I was just taking out time as you guys were talking, like to go through, the manifesto of the APC again on agriculture, and I noticed that you guys talked about like what they call it again, manual clearing of land, but on the manifesto, it actually states that they would be on the subsection of that's titled large scale land clearing. It states that they we have about 35% of our arable land in Nigeria is presently under cultivation. Our target shall be to increase this number to over to 65% within 4 years. Okay, there's actually a time frame to work with here, and working with international and domestic private sector partners. Maybe he might have put it as people going there to go and clear the land, but I think they might actually have another plan. Maybe most likely to um
Yeah,
to
yeah, speaking
I
grammar
don't think
now.
they'll put that on paper though. But that there's this tendency to over explain anything that is currently related to the establishment. They say one thing, and then people that support them come out and over explain it.
I think
So
Ajuri
that's
under,
what we're facing.
I think Ajuri understands that Nigerians rarely read. He knows a lot of people will never visit this manifesto. He's just doing his bit to continue to make, drive populism. Oh, we are going to give you a job. You are going to have places to clear. Some people will be excited about that. Meanwhile, that's not where value is created. Value is created more in getting those guys to run the thugs that they will use to clear those land. Value is created more in saving their time by ensuring that it is deployed to more productive ventures. You understand? But I mean, this is Nigeria. Like the old Ambrosia Ijebu will say, anything you see, take it like that.
I think I
Okay.
think like all of the supporters of like the establishment are all responsible for are all guilty rather, because majority of them had already even pledged their support before. Like Nigeria is a very unserious country. It's a country where people already pledged their support to candidates that are yet to even provide like a document that they can use to evaluate. And in fact, after the manifestos were all released by all of the candidates, it did not sway anybody's opinion in any way. And just like you said, Sinoshaw, I'm actually going through this document as we're talking, and it's very light on. There's no much content that's or specifics as to what's going to be done and everything. Yeah, but you know,
They keep
it is
sweeping
what
us
it
with
is.
the numbers now. They will take it from 35% to 60%. They will take it from how many million to how many million. It's the numbers all over again. And we get confused really easily as a people, right? When it comes to this number, when they just say 60% of the arable land in the blah, blah, blah area is not cultivated, right? And then we
Nasarawa
quickly
is a
get
very big
jumpy.
is a country.
Yeah, we
Nasarawa is a
get
country of
jumpy.
its own.
We don't get relative with it. We don't say this and this when you compare it. We do a
Yeah.
comparative analysis. What does it bring? We just shut down when we see all of these numbers, and that's what's playing out here for me. And I saw the manifesto, and after it I was just like, okay.
We are going to go from 30 to 65. And then you wonder why Ajuri is saying people will be using their hand to cut glasses. Ah, God, I beg you.
And this is where like what they fail to do is like they always fail to like wow me with like 21st century forward thinking ideas. Okay, if you want to go into agriculture, are we talking about like vertical farming? Are we talking about like I don't like you need to
What about
wow me, you need to impress
what?
me. How do all
What
these
about?
youths get impressed by basic, like we're going to go back to the farm like it's 19 this thing? Give me new ideas, new ways that we're going to do like all this stuff. I've heard Chiore speaking about agriculture before, and he will tell you, oh, we're going to try this way, we're going to try it this way, we're going to do vertical farming. We're going to try, and these are things that are working in other places in the world where their environment may not be okay for them, or so many other things. So it's just really confusing for some people how they get excited by all these things. But
I was I was expecting to see that we will start planting some kind of crops that would ordinarily not have grown in some areas using
exactly,
hydroponic farming system. You understand? It's not the
exactly.
hydroponic. I don't want to say shit. Pardon. It's not the hydroponic really that is the thing for me. It is the fact that you understand that you may not necessarily have to cultivate the land. You might just set up tents somewhere, right? Create an enabling environment for, let's say, apple to grow, and then you grow apple on about 28 hectares of land within your vicinity. Did I just say vicinity? Pardon. Within your area, and then all you have is tents, shelves, and then the kind of water solution that can help these crops to be productive. At the end of the day, you see, it is practically just more or less like we are saying, as opposed to sending our brothers to the heat, you can as well just put up a tent, put these seeds where they should be, let them grow. Hydroponic farming, gaskia, and then you would have generated significant productivity without using our land. Imagine, we could as well use the land for something else. You understand? But it is Nigeria, like I said earlier, yeah? I don't want to reiterate it.
Yeah. I mean,
But
there's no way
anything
we
you
can
say,
talk
you must take.
about yeah. There's no way you can talk about this agriculture thing, without talking about the agriculture, should I call it, I wanted to say revolution, and now I'm struggling to use a different word. But what they wanted to do the last 8 years, right, in Buhari
Yeah,
administration,
you
they
sure
did
don't
the
want to
whole
land in
closing
it.
of border. They did the whole closing of border for us to have this rice revolution. Everything is revolution at this point. No, let me remove that word. It's not. It doesn't work here. But we wanted to do that, right? And they started. I think the banks, they were giving credits to people to have all of this rice. What's this processing mill? And I heard from somebody now that has firsthand information that the produce that they had was not matching up with the meals that people had. So basically, people were just getting these loans from the CBN just to create all of these things and just siphon the money. And the other option, or the other thing the person said, was that the produce, they did not have enough, should I say, they didn't do enough research and development into the type of rice that is high yielding. So there was not enough rice to supply to all of those production mills. Basically, you just be driving around and you'll be seeing people that have already started this infrastructure to produce this rice, and there's no one exactly supplying them. So there's a mismatch with, should I say, the policies, because there's obviously this policy where the government can support them with fund, but then the government said they actually did supply them with some high yielding rice, but I think they might have needed more research into the area of how this should work, and how they should all work together as one industry, because there's a huge mismatch now, and that's why we're having an undersupply. There's a lot of other reasons, obviously, why there's undersupply of rice. But what I was thinking, anyways, with that rice is, I thought there would be more on the manifesto on how to continue with that project, because if they've invested this much into it the last couple of years, I wanted to see, since there's a renewed hope, or they are continuing. He didn't even lie. Bola Tinubu did not lie. He said he's going to continue on where Buhari stopped. So if he was going to continue, I would have loved if you've read it, maybe Sinosho might even know. If you've read anything that talks about how to continue on this plan, because if they can bring it up to scale, it's not a bad thing to have us being self-sufficient in rice, right?
Um,
They're already bragging
Self-sufficiency.
about exporting rice to like
God, I beg you. Oftentimes, yeah, I am here and I'm looking at the numbers and they are not adding up. Well, I am looking at the numbers and they are not adding up. Anchor's borrowers program, a lot of debt right there that people are not repaying. They are calling it national cake. Rice production. But the issue is, why are we not able to scale to a point where we can reasonably record some drop in the price of this commodity in Nigeria? And we have heard
Exactly.
farmers come to tell us like, oh, it's not because of that. Oh, intentional hoarding self still they happen. Like when you are trying to buy, when you are done, you have gone to the mill, right? Some people are trying to control how it comes to the market so much that they can get the best value for this rice. And that will now go to the fact that, okay, how do you provide money at low interest rate to farmers? And then you cannot oversee a proper end-to-end implementation of the rice plan or revolution or whatsoever. I don't want to land in DSS, so let me mind the use of the word revolution. We are not afraid though. We are revolutionaries. So the point is, at the end of the day, I think as of 2022, we have uh, about 5 million metric tons in production, and that's in production, yeah, in Nigeria. And then when you look
Okay.
at consumption in Nigeria, it's still around 7 million metric tons. So it means that like, we still have a deficit of about 2 million metric tons. So anybody who's giving us an impression, yeah, that
What
we
year?
have
What
meant
year
to
is
do
this, Sinosure? What year are you looking about?
2022, he
2022,
said.
2022,
Okay,
yeah.
because 2022. Okay, because the statistics I'm actually looking at is like 2021, and from what I'm seeing on Statista.com, it's showing me that Nigeria is actually the largest. Okay, this is rice production in Africa, and that we produce 8 million metric tons of rice. And but what I just want to take us back to a little bit so that we don't go too far is what is more important for to Nigerians? Is it the exportation of rice or the price of what's like the one we are buying here? Because if we're
Affordability.
going to be a yeah,
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, the policy tours that we have seen recently, they don't tend to point towards affordability. They tend to
mhm.
point towards the aesthetical part of it. More or less like we just want to make up for optics. Yeah, it's not aesthetics, it's optics. And I think a very good example was one of the conversations was where we had back and forth with, I think we had Mr. Lawrence Ali on that conversation on Twitter. And we were having a kind of timeline back and forth. And then we were arguing that, we could have just left rice production. We could have focused on places where we have the capacity to produce the best yields possible, right? For instance, globally, yield per hectare, Nigeria is number 72 in rice production. Yeah.
Even as
The
at
real,
now, as at 2022.
as at 2022, yields per hectare, Nigeria is like number 72. So if Nigeria is number 72 on yields per hectare, it probably speaks to the fact that we do not have the kind of terrain to actually make the best use of the current seedling that we are using. It might mean we need to invest in research and development. Like people should carry out research to see the best seed for our land, our soil. You understand? Meanwhile, if we probe closely, things like cocoa are still going very well here. You understand? And don't forget Cocoa House in Ibadan. I used to cite that example a lot, which was beat with cocoa money. Those were one of the major and the first set of crops that we were able to export. But why am I citing cocoa? I'm saying the land that you are using for rice, can it occupy both rice farming and cocoa farming at the same time? Because I'll be thinking like, okay, uh, what do we call it again?
Is it
Is it
mixed
mixed crop?
farming or what do you
Mixed
call it?
farming, yeah,
Mixed
where you have two kind of item on
right.
this,
Yeah.
yeah, at the same time. If you can do rice and cocoa, then you can do rice under it and put cocoa at the top now. But if we can do both together, which one gives us the best yield? Which one will give us the best value? Let's do cocoa. And then another very important thing is why are we even exporting the cocoa? Why can't we actually play more higher on the value chain? Global cocoa market is about 20 billion US dollars, if I'm not mistaken. And then the global chocolate market is somewhere in the region of 40 something billion US dollars. That means that input is generating twice the value when it's converted to chocolate. You see what I'm saying? So we can play pretty much in some areas, and this will now lead us to another completely different conversation. But don't let us digress. That conversation will be okay. Comparative advantage. Like, what can we do better? If we are importing rice, for instance, right, at cheap prices, and we can produce cocoa, right, at the most cost effective level, like the least cost level, like we can produce it at a very low cost, right? Why don't we just produce cocoa and use the value we create from there, right, to support the import of rice? Yeah. I mean, it's
That
quite
makes
a,
economic sense. That's what
yeah,
everyone does or
that's
should
what
do.
everyone does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like if I am a cobbler, right? I can make the best shoes, I can make everything. Why should I go and be doing baking when it is not an area where I have expertise? Let me produce my shoes and put it in the market. The value I get from there, I can use it to buy cake now when it's my birthday. What do you think? That's where some of us stand.
And I don't even feel like that should be somewhere you stand as per ideology and then someone should stand on the opposite side. It just makes sense. I
This is
don't know
not
why we're dragging about things that should make sense, right?
this is not even necessarily ideological. This is more about the fact that you are
You
looking at
no, the thing
rationality.
is, no. The reality is actually that people would argue this point of view, and I'm just saying, why would people argue this point of view when it should be the rational, logical thing to do? That's just how economics work. If you have the comparative advantage to do the, like, you just pick the one that you know you can export and gain more from. It's not. It's
No,
interesting, anyways.
I have. Do it to me. I silly because see
I'm
when I
here.
talk
I'm
about
going
Nigeria,
through our Agbado manifesto because there are
Please
several.
stop reading. Don't worry. Nothing will wow you. Like you,
You
he's
know, I
looking for
just
that
want to
wow
be
factor.
sure. I just want to be sure of some things, and we're still going to go over power and many
It's
other
fine if
things.
we quote some things, we might get fact checked by anyone that's listening. You can fact check us. We'll go back on it. Nobody's afraid to be wrong.
Okay,
With
okay. So you know what?
um,
Before we since so that we don't know about because I know Sanosha is obsessed with this rice. Be like say now only rice we
no,
chop.
no, I was the one
But
that
no,
no,
I've heard
because
Sanosha
for me,
talk
I'm
about
just
this rice
saying
thing.
that.
Yeah.
I
no,
mean, it's
actually,
quite frustrating, right?
you
Sometimes there's some.
actually you will be surprised to hear people cite national security as a basis for us to produce our rice.
Ah,
You'll be surprised.
My own is. I mean, I'm not even going to come from a scholarly view of this whole thing. My own is if you claim to be producing something so much that you are the number one in Africa, why is it makes absolutely no sense that it is so expensive. It is like rice is a luxury. Rice is now luxury for people. Do you know that?
Why?
In fact,
Why?
Gary,
Why is it?
Gary,
Why is it like that woman from the APC who said people should be eating rice once in a blue moon?
oh my
those ones they
god!
can APC can say anything now. APC can say, well, rice is meant for Easter and Christmas. They can say anything, right? But my own is like many of this food stuff. Because I've actually done like real life interviews with people, right? And like when I mean like people, no, normal Nigerians, not the ones that are coming on Twitter and are coming from the diaspora and everything. Like people that are in Nigeria that are suffering the
You're
problem.
shooting
And
your shot, so thank you very much. Yeah, continue.
no. Okay, so what I mean is, um,
It's fine. Go
now
on.
see, you will not blame me. You will not blame me because I've had conversations with some people. Then I expect you that you're living in a country where things are working much better than they're working back the way they are working back home, and you still come on a space. So I really have an issue with diaspora people right now. But going back to what I was saying, um, like Gary has now become a luxury during this Buhari administration. The poor man food, the food that poor people used to eat, have now become a luxury. Do you know how much the price of Gary is? So if my own I don't we can get into so much conversation about this whole rice stuff and everything. But if you're the number one exporter in Africa, whatsoever, don't brag about that for me. Like brag that the price of because normally the exporting something should make the price higher when it gets there, right? So if you're exporting this thing, why is it not affordable if we're producing it so much that we can actually export to other people that need it? It should be less expensive here. right? But I don't want us to overflog this rice conversation. I just want to quickly, mention something that also is intertwined with national security.
Yeah, before we even
Yeah.
move away, sorry for the rice.
Okay. Yeah.
One
Yeah.
more thing, the rice is very important. I'm not gonna lie because
This
I feel
rice.
like we've invested so much. The thing is, don't just they want a government of continuity, right? That's why we're here. That's what they have always preached. Let's continue wherever we stopped. In as much as I feel like you should be able to finish everything in 4 years, don't repeat a class, never repeat it. Anyways,
Mm-hmm.
if they are going to talk about this rice thing, I wished what I wanted is I wanted to see a more complete plan of how they will scale the rice, and they should present that to us because it would be nice for us to know since they are the people in power, they were the people in power, and they are now maybe the people that will be in power for the next 4 years. So this rice thing, they shouldn't just roll it and say, "Oh, it didn't work out," and then just put it in a bag. I mean, they might have to think a lot on how to go about this, their policies and everything to make things work out more because they can. Anyways,